huge dividends here tonight in Game 7.
Let's bring it over to Pittsburgh side. Obviously, the postseason ends once again with disappointment for Sidney Crosby. He finishes this playoff run, 1 goal, 8 assists. What are you going to remember about Sidney Crosby during this postseason?
His level of frustration. And Sidney Crosby disappointed the fans of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Rangers did a very good job against him, but Crosby allowed way too many things to get in the way of his game. That's a cross-check to the back of the head. Understandable that he'd be frustrated by that. Hit by Nash here into the boards. The Rangers targeted him, which has happened to Crosby throughout. The frustration of a little spear to the groin of Dominic Moore there, and then a cross-check to Mark Stahl. This is not what you want from your superstar player. If you're the Rangers, you want to draw him in to that type of behavior like the Bruins did last year. Slashes like that, retaliatory plays, not what Sidney Crosby should be worried about. Poking there at Dominic Moore, going after players that are not as good and not as skilled as Sidney Crosby, arguing with his coach openly on the bench. This is just the type of behavior. We could roll this tape for a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and most of it's going to look like that. A confused and disappointed Sidney Crosby, but overall, frustration would be the theme for me from Sidney Crosby.
And that video that's going to stand out, the argument with Dan Bilesma, when they were swept by Boston last year. Mike Milbury was here. Yep. The three of us, we had the conversation about what the future held for Dan Bilesma, and both of you thought that was it for him in Pittsburgh. Well, he came back. He signed an extension. What does the future hold now for Dan Bilesma?
I don't think he'll be back with the Pittsburgh Penguins. I do think he'll coach again in the National Hockey League, but I don't think he's the right fit for this Pittsburgh team anymore. The message is falling on deaf ears. For the Pittsburgh Penguins, they need to change something. It could be major personnel changes. You want to trade Malkin. You want to move your goaltender, Marc-Andre Fleury. You want to move a player like Chris Letang, James Neal. Sure, you can do that. But it all goes to this man behind the bench. He was given a great team to coach by Ray Shero. All you have to know, though, about the Pittsburgh Penguins coming into this playoffs, they weren't the favorite to win the Cup. With the same weapons and maybe in a few additions like Olli Maatta on the back end, they weren't the favorite. Rob Scuderi brought in to bring veteran leadership. Last year, they were the favorite and were swept out by the Boston Bruins. The expectations were huge. This year, they weren't as high.
Is any of that on the front office, though?
I liked what the front office did. I don't think Ray Shero should take the fall for this at all. Maybe for keeping Dan Bilesma would be the major mistake that he made, and that may ultimately cost a very good general manager his job. But if I was the Pittsburgh Penguins and running that team, I would point it at the head coach.
Pens won their division, but they are out of the playoffs. The New York Rangers have now won 5 straight Game 7s. They punched their ticket to the conference finals for the 2nd time in the last 3 years. Much more on this on NHL Overtime, presented by Bud Light.